Now, officials of the Education Ministry, including the Sector Minister, Dr. Matthew Opoku Prempeh, have been commiserating with families of the children who were killed when a school building collapsed on them on Tuesday. At least 6 kindergarten pupils were killed in the tragedy in the central region town of Breman Jamra. We'll be speaking to the Education Minister, who's been to the town. But first, there have been claims the school authorities ignored advice to relocate to another structure after they complained about the state of the building. Correspondent Richard Kojo-Nyarko, however, reports the school's headmaster says the alternative offered them was no good.
It is a tale of parents kissing their sons and daughters goodbye and sending them to school only for them to return no more. All the joys of motherhood suddenly smashed into pieces. They simply couldn't control their tears. Their treasures, their sons and daughters, went to school and never returned. The kindergarten school block collapsed and fell on the school pupils whose ages range from 2 to 5. 4 of the students were killed instantly, while 2 died on their way to receive treatment at the hospital, with 4 more who suffered diverse degrees of injuries said to be in a relatively stable condition.
I was shocked and despaired. It is unprecedented in my life, and I've not experienced such of this nature before.
Jacob Emisa is the head teacher of the school. He appears emotionally tortured by the tragic development that has bedeviled his school. So why did he look on for the children to be housed in this structure?
This one that they are saying the children should quit from this place and come here. If you can go around and see how the nature of the building. So if they are saying, they have told us that we should quit from this place and come here, this place is being more dangerous than this one.
The Sukuma Odobin Brakwa District Coordinating Director, Joseph Abugri, says the community and the school authorities were forewarned by the assembly to allow the contractor to pull the structure down, but the attempt was resisted by the community.
Per our engineer's observation, the building is a weak structure. It was upon that basis that we initiated action to construct a new one, a 2 unit kg, to replace the old one. So handing over the site to the contractor somewhere in October, which he has started. It's gotten to the floor level. If you go, the floor is already done. It's now reaching the superstructure. The iron is that there are other classrooms there which are not being used, but currently the teachers were used to write mock exam. And so our expectation was that they should have moved those children from there to the unused classrooms. But we got the information that the children were in the classroom, they were just hovering around the wall. The chiefs and the committee members said they should leave the building because they will need to use it for something else.
Joy News' investigations into the existing structures of the school that house Primary 1 to JHS 3 reveal similar structural defects that could cause another tragedy someday. Richard Kojo-Nyarko, Joy News, Breman Jamra.
Now let's go live now onto the phone lines and speak with Education Minister Dr. Matthew Opoku Prempeh, who has just been to the site of the collapsed building to ascertain the extent of damage for himself. Good evening to you, and many thanks for your time.
Hello.
Hello, Dr. Matthew Opoku Prempeh. Good evening, and thank you for your time.
Good evening.
All right. Now, as you may have heard, authorities there say the building was weak, which was why it collapsed. What have you been told, having been to the site yourself?
I've been told that the building had developed cracks over years. And unfortunately, in that still day, the building collapsed. Unfortunately, there were school kids just around the place the building collapsed. That is what the chief of the town told me.
All right, and what alternative arrangements have been made for the school in the meantime, for the rest of the pupils in the meantime?
Fortunately, a new KG and a new first classroom block are both being constructed for the school. So we've urged the contractor to speedily finish the job. 2, the school is making arrangements that the existing GHS block there, they're going to run in such that they'll combine a couple of classes and have another class for the nursery. The district coordinating director of education, the district director of education has spoken that that's how they're going to do. so that the contractor can finish with ASAP.
And in the long term, what's going to be happening to that school?
There will have new structures for the school. One is being funded by Common Fund, one is being funded by District Development Facility. The funds released are delayed because of the transition period, I'm told. So we are working on it to get the funds released as quickly as possible.
Do we know how soon this is going to be, the structures are going to be ready?
Actually, the construction is ongoing. And I went and I met people on site this afternoon. The contractor hasn't stopped work because of lack of funds. We are calling him tomorrow, and even if it's lack of funds, whether we can find a bridging facility for him to complete the work ASAP.
What is the ministry intending to do to avoid some of these accidents? There may be other school buildings that may be in similar state.
Just today, we are taking a decision, not because of this accident, but we are taking a decision to conduct an audit of all schools, projects ongoing and initiatives to find out the state of those buildings, the state of those schools, the projects ongoing. So we'll capture them. The paramount chief of the place, Breman Asekuma, he hinted that there's another school in Asekuma that has developed serious cracks. I've tasked the district director of education to visit the school to let us know what remedial measures we can put in as quickly as possible. But we would say that our chief inspector of schools all around the country, and I think that they will take this job to let us know as quickly as possible schools that are in urgent need of such facilities of intervention, so that we can do that as quickly as possible.
Is government supporting the families of the victims in any way?
Yes. So when I went to the MP, had taken the lead, but I have also assured him that the bill, and even those who have lost children, we are going to support them through the burial process, and those who are still hospitalized, we are going to pay their bills.
All right, thank you very much. Dr. Matthew Opoku Prempeh is the Education Minister, and he's just been to Bremang, where the tragedy occurred. 6 children lost their lives when a school building collapsed on them. Now, moving on to other news. A massive thunderstorm that affected the eastern coastal areas of the country Tuesday has left in its wake significant damage to property, especially in Accra. Joy News checks across the city indicate several giant-sized billboards were torn down by heavy winds. Joy News' Beatrice Edu toured some of the affected areas, including Parliament, which had the roof of its main chamber ripped off, forcing an adjournment of the House Tuesday night.
It was a night of heavy rains that left a lot of property destroyed. In Parliament House, the havoc was massive. Sitting was suspended, and the Speaker, Professor Michael Quay, was forced to assess the extent of damage Wednesday morning.
You can see right behind me a number of roofing sheets that have been put on the floor. A number of carpenters are trying to straighten up these roofing sheets behind me. They are working on them. And of course, we also know of how this rain caused havoc inside the floor of Parliament. At the other side of this compound, you can also see some women sweeping the debris off the streets. Just some few minutes ago, the Speaker of Parliament, Professor Michael Quay, just came out to inspect what is going on outside here. You can see him right behind me going, and he actually stood here for some time, also marveled at the extent of damage caused to the property of the Parliament House here.
The state broadcaster, GBC, was not spared either. 2 large trees fell by the roadside, almost blocking access to the broadcasting house. Nation Roundabout was also a scene of havoc when Joy News visited. All manner of billboards were ripped off, with some of their poles totally broken down.
It's a day after heavy rains in Accra, and already the destruction is massive. Right behind me, you can see the road filled with water cars struggling to pass through the mud, as well as the water on the roads, dirty environment over here. Just right on my left side, you can see this giant billboard that has been ripped off almost completely by the probably heavy winds from the rain. Just behind this Hyundai World office, you can also see there is a roofing that has also been almost ripped off. And then you can see the debris from the billboard that has been ripped off on the floor, on the compound of this Hyundai World. So that's on my left side, facing the roundabout, the Kaneshie roundabout, just around the Hyundai office. On my right side, which is on the same road where the Royal House Chapel is, just few meters after the Royal House Chapel, you can see also the destruction caused by the rains. It seems that they had already complained about how safe this particular giant billboard was. Okay, hello, sir. Hello.
When they go to Timber Market, they go buy fake materials. Then they come and do the billboard to kill human being.
Excuse me, do you know anything about this particular billboard?
No. When they are making the billboard, they should go buy the correct iron.
How do you know that?
No, see. They go to Timber Market and go and buy fake, the rusting one. Then they come and take billboard. Then they take big money for the companies. That's what they are. They buy, see the iron, see the thickness.
And there's no weight under it. It will fall. And casualty will happen. What do we do as a nation? These things are for individuals. And they registered with AME. So AME take portion of the money. What are they doing about it? We only talk. Ghana, we know how to talk and insult. But the real job, we don't know how to do it. But we look ourselves, we just need and go to
arresting motors. Why?
To me, all these things should stop. All should come on board to the state actors. Everything, all these people should be removed and to reduce to certain heights.
When you come to one end of this billboard, you see that it actually broke not from the foundation, but from just on top of the foundation. And in there, you can see that it actually had rusted. And the only thing that covered the rust is the blue paint around it.
Now, Tuesday night's downpour brought down quite a number of billboards, leaving many to once again question the level of diligence paid to their structural integrity. Essentially, who's making sure that the billboards are properly erected and won't come crashing down on buildings and cars and claiming lights? As far as the Advertising Association of Ghana is concerned, the Accra Metropolitan Assembly has always frustrated its efforts to bring some sanity to the way these structures are sited. Joining us is Latif Idris, has been speaking with AAG Executive Secretary Francis Dadzie.
The mayor at that time had brought in this consultant who, by extension, was working to the interest of the mayor.
Of the assembly, you mean?
Of the mayor. Why do I say so? How do you sign an agreement with a consultant that you give him 40% of your revenue? Young man, that the man, you are collecting monies already, you bring a consultant and tell him that the 100% that through the AAG and assembly itself were collecting, bring the same revenue to me.
Was he bringing the same revenue? Or he was expected to maximize what was already being...
He was expected to maximize the revenue, but what he decided to do was to increase the rates to be able to maximize that revenue.
Here, I found something interesting.
Yes.
A line I want to read.
Yes.
In the letter given by the Accra Metropolitan Assembly.
Yes.
It says, additionally, since the assemblies are autonomous, AMA envisages legal implications for the assembly if the assembly should enforce the proposal and then implement it within our metropolis. I'm sure here they were referring to what you were putting before them to do.
There's a public safety issue. There's a billboard that is in position so close to the road that it can fall down. You are saying that legal implications of what? You are saying that only because the public or consumer associations have not taken the AMA to court for an order of mandamus to compel them to do the right thing. What are you talking about? So the vehicles that have been bought and the people that have the billboards are hidden, What legal implications are we talking about? Which one comes first? Public safety? That's just a lame point.
The distraction caused by Tuesday night's thunderstorm to the roof of the main chair of Parliament has got the House talking about the need for a new building to house the legislature. Minority Leader Haruna Idrisu told journalists during an inspection of the extent of damage on Wednesday morning, though the issue has come up before, last night's distraction has once again brought the issue to the fore.
Out of the protest, I wasn't within the premises of Parliament when the storm happened. Unfortunate as it is, lucky as we are, at least there's been no casualties in terms of life and death. So thanks to God for His grace. It's for us to do a complete assessment of the structural integrity of the entire building. And probably it's about time that we support Mr. Speaker to build a new chamber. Indeed, I supported him with the Deputy Majority Leader when he held meetings with the Chinese ambassador and the Indian ambassador, and he had already officially asked for support to get Parliament to be properly resident in terms of office accommodation and in terms of a chamber block. But what has happened exposes the weakness of structural engineering designs. But this is possible. It's an act of God. I mean, you can't blame a storm or a wind on any person, but at least we should have buildings that can stand the test of some of this pressure. Leadership will meet with Mr. Speaker this morning. You saw me welcome him, and we will take his guidance and advice accordingly. But Parliament can sit anywhere. If it becomes necessary, we may move to the Accra International. We may move to the Accra International Conference Center temporarily. That would be my advice to the Speaker.
But beyond this,
there are agencies of government that we need to look at as Parliament. But kindly leave this to Mr. Speaker.
No, but beyond sitting, others are also saying that what happened yesterday, the fact that the rains disrupted sitting, was an eyesore. To do about this?
I'll suit myself with that, and then those responsible for supervising contracts, but I'm unable to comment on the cause of it.
Now, the related development, manager of the Focus Division of the Meteorological Agency, Joseph Portofi, says his outfit is investigating a staff member for peddling falsehood regarding last night's rainstorm. Meteorologist at the Ghana Meteorological Agency, James Dusu, earlier today attributed the inability of the agency to communicate timely, accurate weather forecasts to the public to lack of communication equipment at the agency. This, according to him, resulted in their inability to predict Tuesday night's thunderstorm. But according to Mr. Portofi, institutional memory and technology available pointed to the fact that the thunderstorm was expected in the eastern coastal areas of the country. The manager of the Focus Division therefore described James Dusu's claim as misleading.
Yeah, we predicted it. We issued a weather warning as way back as 1500, that is 3 p.m. We issue a weather warning at 3 p.m. advising the public that from the coast, that is from the eastern part of the country, that's Aplau, Adan, Elite Barons, will have a rainfall, thunderstorm with rain coming to them from 3 p.m., if not mistaken, from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. And then Tema and Elite Barons will have it from 6 Tema, Accra, and Elite Barons will have it from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Then Kaswa, Winneba, Cape Coast from 8 p.m. till midnight. We issued a weather warning.
So what happened to the communication, in your outfits that we have?
Yeah, that is what we are still investigating, because when I came this morning, I saw that the weather warning was issued. And I did a printout from the machine. And this is the weather warning. I printed it from the machine. I was not even here when the person issued the weather warning. Wow. And look at the time he issued it. Look at the time. We issued a weather warning. We are aware it will rain. And even when I went through the system, this is what I saw.
And did you give these institutions the intensity of rain we're going to have? Was it clearly spelled out in the communication?
Yes, you see, the system we are using, the satellite imagery we are using comes with a color code. So depending on the color code, will tell you the intensity of the radar you have. And with the hand sight, what we call institutional memory or persistent theory, over the area that we'll be forecasting, how we've been doing the forecasting here for the past 10 years. So what happens is that climatologically will tell you that when you have a system for over 1 month, 2 months, there was no rain. And the model that we were using, we saw that there will be injection of a lot of moisture.
You're watching Joy News when we're taking a break, but still to come in the bulletin. Minority in Parliament disputes claims by Vice President Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia that the John Mahama administration failed to disclose an expenditure of 7 billion cedis, and they're accusing him of playing mischief with the information. Stay tuned, we have all that and more coming up. The minority in Parliament has dismissed claims by Vice President Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia that the NDC government hid expenditures to the tune of 7 billion cedis from state coffers between 2014 and 2016. The minority says the amount is captured in a contract database at the Finance Ministry, which Dr. Bawumia should be aware of. Speaking at a forum on corporate governance in Accra Tuesday, Dr. Bawumia said the expenditure had not been disclosed and was only discovered by the current administration whilst preparing the 2017 budget.
In the management of any economy, there is nothing that can beat the integrity of your economic data, because it's with data that you plan. If you don't have data, you have major problems. And this is why we really need to emphasize the integrity of data. In preparing for this year's budget, for example, we have been very surprised by the fiscal data, the data on our expenditures and on our revenues. As we interrogated the data to see exactly why our public finances are in the state they are, we find out that there's 7 billion Ghana cedis of expenditures that have not been disclosed. And I'm talking 7 billion for ending the year 2016. And these come from 2014, 2015, 2016. So where have they been hiding all these years?
But addressing a news conference in Accra, former Deputy Finance Minister Ato Forsing says expenditures were captured under a new financial management system called the Ghana Integrated Financial Management Information Systems, GIFMIS, which he says the current government does not understand. He further explained it previously took 3 to 6 months for expenditures to appear on government database as arrears that the state should pay, but that under GIFMIS, expenditures are captured immediately, hence the 7 billion cedis figure. Ato Forsing also accused the current government of attempting to abandon the new reforms that the previous government introduced, and that Dr. Bawumia is only being mischievous.
The campaigns are over. The campaigns are over. So we want to urge the Vice President to desist from making certain pronouncements that will not help the cause of the country. The amount in question he's making reference to are indeed part of the contract database. They are part of outstanding commitment that, as part of a major initiative launched by the President Mahama-led administration, the Ministry of Finance established the contract database for the purposes of us having a complete view of what the pipeline is. Therefore, instead of the conventional way of seeing arrests as 3 to 6 months, we looking at arrest and commitment over a fiscal year, and in some cases a multi-year commitment, as reported in the medium-term expenditure framework.
Now, joining me in the studio now to shed more light on this is George Riafi. He is an editor on the Business Desk. Good evening to you, George, and thanks for coming through.
Thank you also, Israel.
All right, so it's not quite clear how the GIFMIS platform could have concealed this 7 billion CD expenditure, has been suggested by the former Deputy Finance Minister. Can you explain how this came about?
Well, let's backtrack a little bit and let's look at even what this whole GIFMIS thing is about. Trying to automate the entire government finances. So anytime we make any expenditure, it is captured in the system. Anything that is going on that have advanced X amount of money for this project, that is also captured. So if all those ministries were going by this procedure, there was no way that this expenditure would be carried out and then it wouldn't be accounted for. So the system is trying to automate the entire operations of government when it comes to finances. What we understand from some independent actors is that some government agencies and ministries spend outside the budget, which wasn't accounted for, and they didn't go through this kind of computerized or automated system of government.
Essentially,
finances.
some of the agencies are able to sidestep the system.
The system, and even ministries as well. So these are areas that are built up over the last 3 years. And if Israel, I'm talking about not even the central actors, but independent actors, which I'll call them sources here, who are confirming that basically it's indeed true that these funds were not accounted for. And that is even going to result in the deficit shooting up far more than what we know right now, as well as our debt-GDP ratio also shooting up.
Okay. From what you're trying to explain, what I'm getting from your explanation is that probably there were expenditures that have been probably paid for or maybe not paid for. And it's gotten to a point where they realize that, okay, if we don't get it captured in the system, we're never going to get paid.
So ask yourself, why is this new government also bringing it out? Because what we're also hearing from some independent actors is that these funds are being moved to, or they were being moved to the budget as we go on. So if it wasn't captured under everything the government has to pay for has to be captured in the budget. So the previous years, it wasn't captured. So they were finding ways to move it to this new budget. And the government was like, hold on, we need to probe further. Where did these monies go? Where is it going to? This question, that question is, okay, if you can't get those answers that we're looking for, then it might be difficult to settle these monies on time. And that is why they flagged it that these are monies that have been spent, but it wasn't clearly stated in these documents that it's gone to A, B, C, D area. Okay. But again, you also want to look at what could be the implications of this on this government's whole expenditure plan and even revenue. That could have serious implications on what they can do.
Now, talking about implications, already we're hearing that apparently there's been some repercussions on
our bonds. And when you hear news like this, the investors are going to ask the implications on my funds. It means that government has to make provision
more
for
money available
to try and finance this deficit. So it means that expenditure might go up, the cost might go up. What will be the implication on the bond that you hold? And that is why the value has gone down and the interest has shot up. And it looks like, again, we might end 2016 with far higher expenditure than what we all thought. And that is why these investors are worried, and some might be checking out of the bonds, and that is having implications on us. It means that a cost of paying these bonds has shot up.
Right.
And you have to move some funds from somewhere to deal with this.
Okay. Thank you very much, George Riafi. George Riafi is with Joy Business. Well, Dr. Bawumia also suggested the cost of constructing the official residence for the Vice President at an estimated cost of $13.9 million was over-bloated. The minority says it will respond to that matter on Thursday. Ahead of that, however, former presidential staffer has been responding to that claim. Clement Apak says Dr. Bawumia's claim is misleading.
As far as we know, the amount paid and as far as the ongoing construction of the Vice President's residence is concerned is what the paper you quoted had indicated, slightly above 5 million. 5.9 million because it's certainly not 13.9 million. That is why I said slightly.
Okay.
In any case, it is on record that on the day that the then Vice President, Emisata, was part of the entourage where Vice President-elect then Bawumia was touring the White House. It was made known to him by Misata about this ongoing construction, to which even then Vice President Emisata, in the briefing, told Dr. Bawumia that he had become aware that a payment of about 5.9 million had been made to the contractor, despite the fact that work had not been completed. Indeed, Emisata raised a lot of concern, and he made that known to the current Vice President. But remember that the contractor who is working on this has been working with the Architectural and Engineering Services Limited, which is the agency responsible for overseeing this. So if the current government has any problems with the cost involved, I think the best thing is that AESL is still present, available, and is still the government agency overseeing the construction of this Vice President's, if you like, abode.
Former Attorney General Martin Amidu will no longer be party in a case in which a private legal practitioner is seeking to stop the oral examination of businessman Alfred Woyome on the whereabouts of the 51 million cedi judgment debt paid him by the state. The highly anticipated oral examination was suspended following the action by David Ametefe, who wants the Supreme Court to determine whether the judge who granted the relief to Mr. Amidu, Justice Anin Yeboah, had the power to do so. The former AG had gone to court to question the locus of the private legal practitioner in its attempt to scuttle his oral examination of Mr. Woyome. There is more in this report.
Matter the court set out to determine was whether private legal practitioner David Ametefe had the capacity to initiate the action as well as the propriety of the means used. The legal practitioner went to court following a decision by Justice Anin Yeboah, sitting as a sole judge, to allow the former Attorney General Martin Amidu to orally examine businessman Alfred Woyome. He had wanted an interpretation on the extent to which a single justice of the court can act, as well as an order from the court to halt the planned oral examination. Martin Amidu raised an initial objection, questioning David Ametefe's capacity. Justice Ofaya Kufu, reading the judgment of the 7-member panel, said David Ametefe had appropriately invoked the jurisdiction of the court. The panel, however, disagreed with him on those listed as defendants. The court held that Martin Amidu does not qualify to be a defendant in the suit. A cost of 5,000 cedis was awarded against David Ametefe.
Now, President Akufo-Addo has arrived in Accra after participating in the just-ended African Union Summit held in the Ethiopian capital, Addis Ababa. Addressing the media at the Kotoka International Airport Wednesday, Information Minister-designate Mustafa Hamid said the AU at the meeting agreed to an imposition of a 0.2% levy on imports of member states to fund the AU activities. He has also been explaining government's role in the election of former Foreign Affairs Minister Kwesi Kwartey to the vice chairman position of the AU.
The African Union has a budget annually of not less than 400 million, between 400 to 500 million dollars every year as its annual budget. But out of that, member countries are able to contribute between 150 to 170 million dollars every year. The rest of it is funded by international bodies and foreign groups and so on. Now, the African Union thinks that it is not acceptable for a group of sovereign and independent nations to be dependent on other nations for the running of their union. So now the African Union has taken a decision that an additional levy of 0.2% be put by all African countries on imports. In other words, an import levy of 0.2% be imposed by all African governments, which will be set aside and put in a fund as those governments' contribution to the AU fund. Now, they also said that all African countries whose GDP is about 4% and above will collectively contribute 60% of the money that the African Union requires every year to run its activities. And those who have a GDP of below 4%, the Union itself will determine for them, based on their capacity to pay, how to get the rest of the 40% to make up for the finances of the Union. At this summit, a Ghanaian, Ambassador Kwesi Kwartey, was elected as the deputy chair of the African Union Commission. Daniel Batidam was elected as the chair of the AU Advisory Committee on Corruption. One Mrs. Catherine Ayesu was elected to the African Union Body on International Law. A scientist by name Professor Dakori was given an award that is called the Kwame Nkrumah Award for Scientific Achievement. He shared it jointly with an Egyptian professor, and they got $100,000 each for their efforts in science development and so on.
Now, Minister-designate for Communications, Ursula Owusu-Ekuful, has indicated her legal tussle with Zain, the company which eventually evolved to become Airtel, will not get in the way of her ensuring a level playing field for the various telecommunication companies in the country. Responding to questions on the matter from members of the Appointment Committee Wednesday, the Minister-designate explained she sued the company because she felt her right to free expression and association had been infringed upon.
I was working with Zain Telecommunications until 2009, and on 8th January 2009, I was handed a letter disengaging me from the services of the company, indicating that my public appearances in the media were becoming an embarrassment for the company. And so, since they ascribed a reason for that, I took them to the Human Rights Court, that they had infringed my right of free expression and association. So it's purely a human rights matter. It has nothing to do with the work they do or their professionalism or anything. For me, it's a human interest case. And but interestingly, there have been moves to settle that matter for a few months now, and I believe we're close to conclusion on that matter. So Zain is no longer working in this country. The company is Airtel, and they have nothing to fear from me. The actors have changed. The company has changed. The nature of the case is personal, it's not professional, and I will deal with them in a manner which is in the best interest of this country, and would assist them as a company to also grow. And so I don't see any potential problems or conflict, particularly if the initiatives to settle this matter out of court also come to fruition sooner than later, as I expect. We've had a lot of conversations up to this point, and I'm sure, and I know that the current managers and the board members of the Airtel know that they have a friend in me. And so I don't think it will even be necessary. It may be overkill to do what Honorable Minority Leader is suggesting. The negotiations are very far advanced. I can assure you of that. Thank you.
She talked about plans to improve access to internet across the country so it could be leveraged to boost national development.
The original timetable for migration was June 2015. It's been mixed. The deadline I inherited was September 2017. I'm still receiving briefings on it and looking at the state of deployment of the infrastructure. It may be necessary to extend the deadline. I don't know. Sitting here now, I can't tell you because we're still having discussions on that. And there may still be some issues with providing set-top boxes for the poor and marginalized who may not be in a position to afford new digital televisions. However, the original funding proposal for this whole project was the sale of 4G spectrum. It was anticipated that we'll be able to sell 2 blocks of 4G spectrum. We've been able to sell only 1. So there is a funding gap for us to meet currently to enable us provide the power that you so succinctly referred to power the network. It is important that we stick to the essentials first before we think about the other measures. So
Right, Minister Designate for Communications Ceslos was rather talking about the digital migration. Now, the nominee also revealed that national ID cards should be available to Ghanaians by the end of the year.
All understand the importance of having a proper identification system for our country. We've talked about it and done some work towards it since 2006 when the National Identification Authority was set up. Spent a fair bit of money, but we find ourselves in a situation where, because we don't have a proper national identification solution, all the various agencies which need data are investing in standalone systems which don't talk to each other. So we find ourselves duplicating efforts, wasting money and all that. The National Data Center is a very useful piece of infrastructure that we've put in. It has the capacity to host all the data sets in this country. And so, as we've indicated in our manifesto, we're committed to putting in place a functioning national ID system by the end of this year. Work has already started towards that. And we need not replicate the infrastructure that we've already put in. So all the national ID system needs to do is to use the National Data Center as their data warehouse instead of replicating that infrastructure in their offices. And that will also go some way towards reducing the cost of setting up this infrastructure. It would help. And I am looking forward to the day where, by the click of a button, you can apply for a passport, indicate the time that you want it. If you want expedited service, you can indicate that on the application and on the monitor, pay for it using mobile money or credit card or e-switch or whatever, and it will be provided for on that same platform. Indicate where you want to pick it up on that platform.
Also appearing before the committee Wednesday was Minister Designate for Sanitation and Water, Joseph Kofi Adda, who hinted government will continue to observe the National Sanitation Day. He, however, added it will be giving a different face this time around.
Mr. Chairman, the honourable member is right about the complex nature of the waste that we have in our system and our lack of capacity to be able to handle it. Indeed, I've cited some documents, some reports, some policy papers that have attempted to deal with these matters. They're rather scattered and residing in different agencies. One report is what she's alluded to, coming from EPA. Another report coming from the Accra Metropolitan Authority, and there are a few others from NGOs and CBOs and what have you. The focus that the President is giving to this ministry, an intention to ensure that we bring this matter to a closure as much as we can, I think is what gives us the opportunity to be able to consolidate all these reports, all these proposals, all these policy statements into one grand strategic approach to dealing with the matter once and for all. I think there are two aspects of the problem that we all know, but we've not been able to deal with over the years. The attitudinal side of it, and also the lack of finance, as I said. If we are all willing to deal with this matter in a manner that the President has shown political will, by setting up this ministry for that focus, I think we can get away with it. And that will, from us, the average citizens, will come along with the enforcement aspects, meaning that we all have to comply. If you look at us individually, everybody wants to look nice. We all want to dress nice, want to clean the insides of our compounds, but when we go out, it's a different matter. I think a broad approach would be to look at the communication aspect of it and make sure that we all wake up, as it were, that this is something we all desire, but we've not cooperated with the required agencies. So as we engage the stakeholders to evolve one grand strategy to deal with this matter, I think we'll move a step further to get the commitment from individuals to ensure that we all participate in the effort to clean up our environment. Enforcement is something that is lacking. There are bylaws all over. In nearly every metropolitan or district assembly, we're not able to enforce that. We have trained many young men and women in environmental sanitation health. They're not able to do their jobs. They're not even being absorbed into the system. I think with this ministry, we can make a call for them to be given the space to be able to do the work that they need to do. Mr. Chairman, may I even add that we could consider the possibility of what we might call an energy police, so I beg your pardon, a sanitation police. If the nurses or the health experts who are coming from the schools given one more push to enforce this, they'll be able to send it to courts and make sure that everybody complies. We've lived through, some of us at least, an era when we had the sama. We all saw people kaki with hard hats coming to the house and breaking earthenware pots and what have you. If we go back to that and enforce it, I'm sure it'll make a difference.